The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. I stared at my laptop screen, the glow burning my tired eyes as I scrolled through hundreds of wedding photos from last Saturday. The couple had been sweet, nervous, so in love it almost hurt to watch. I'd captured that love in every frame, the way he looked at her during the vows. Her hands trembling as she slid the ring onto his finger, the tears streaming down her mother's face. Beautiful moments. Moments that would pay exactly half of my rent this month. I rubbed my eyes and glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. My small studio apartment in South Boston felt smaller than usual tonight, the walls pressing in with the weight of unpaid bills stacked on my kitchen counter. The photography business I dreamed about for years was barely keeping me afloat. 3 more wedding bookings and I could breathe again. Maybe even fix my camera's broken lens that I've been compensating for by shooting at specific angles. The knock on my door made me jump, not a casual knock. Not a neighbor asking to borrow sugar or complaining about noise. This was authoritative, demanding, the kind of knock that said whoever was on the other side was used to doors opening immediately. I glanced at the time again. Who the hell knocked on doors at midnight? My heart rate picked up as I crept toward the door, camera in hand, my most expensive possession and my only potential weapon. The peephole revealed 3 men in the dimly lit hallway. The one in front was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Even through the distorted peephole, I could see the sharp lines of his jaw, the way he stood with absolute certainty that this door would open. Behind him, 2 men built like refrigerators waited with their hands clasped in front of them, scanning the hallway with professional precision. Every instinct screamed at me to pretend I wasn't home. The knock came again, firmer this time. "Miss Mitchell?" The voice was deep, controlled, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't quite place. "Sophie Mitchell? I need to speak with you. It's urgent." How did he know my name? I don't open my door to strangers at midnight. I called through the wood, proud that my voice only shook a little. A pause. Then, "I understand. My name is Dante Romano. My father was Vincent Romano. He passed away 4 days ago, and your name appeared in his will. I need to speak with you about that." Vincent Romano. The name meant nothing to me. I never heard it before in my life. "I think you have the wrong person," I said, keeping my hand on the deadbolt. "I don't know anyone named Vincent Romano." "I didn't think you would." Another pause. "Miss Mitchell, I know how this sounds. I know it's late, and I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to look at this document. I'll slide it under your door. You don't have to open it, just look at it, please." The please surprised me. Men who knocked on doors at midnight with armed guards didn't usually say please. A moment later, papers slid under my door. Official-looking papers with gold seals and legal letterhead. I picked them up with shaking hands, my eyes scanning the dense legal language until I found my name. Sophie Elizabeth Mitchell. There it was in black and white, in a section titled Special Provisions and Final Requests, and below my name in what appeared to be a handwritten addition to the typed document, "Find her, bring her to me. Protect her with your life." My stomach dropped. "This doesn't make any sense," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to myself or to the man on the other side of the door. "I know." His voice was closer now, like he'd leaned against the doorframe. "I've been trying to make sense of it for 4 days. My father never mentioned you. There are no records of you in any of his files, no photographs, no correspondence. But that instruction was written in his own hand, added to the will 2 weeks before he died. It was important to him. Important enough that he made it legally binding." I stared at the words again. "Protect her with your life." Why would someone I've never met want to protect me? "That's what I need to find out." A pause. "Miss Mitchell, there's something else you should know. The moment this will was read in the presence of the family attorney and several witnesses, your name became known to people who might not have your best interests at heart." What's that supposed to mean? It means that in my world, knowledge is power. And the knowledge that Vincent Romano left specific instructions about protecting a woman no one's ever heard of, that makes you interesting. And in my world, interesting can be dangerous. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Your world? What world is that? Silence. The kind of silence that answered questions without words. Oh God, I'd lived in Boston my whole life. I knew the stories, the whispers about families who ran things behind the scenes. The North End restaurants where certain men ate for free. The construction projects that never had permit problems. The clubs that stayed open despite noise complaints. Romano. The name clicked into place with a cold rush of recognition. I'd photographed a wedding in the North End 6 months ago, and the bride's father had pointed out a restaurant across the street. "That's Romano's place," he'd said with a mixture of respect and fear. "You don't go there unless you're invited." I couldn't even finish the sentence. "My father was a businessman," Dante said carefully. "A very successful businessman with a lot of complicated interests. And now those interests are mine. Along with his instructions regarding you." My legs felt weak. I leaned against the door, my mind racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I took photos of babies and brides. I ate ramen for dinner and worried about student loans. I didn't get mentioned in mafia wills with instructions to be protected at all costs. "I think you should leave," I said, trying to sound firm. I wish I could respect that request, but I can't. His voice dropped lower. "Miss Mitchell, look out your window." The street side, not the alley. My apartment faced the street. I had one window with a view of the parked cars below and the convenience store across the road. I moved toward it on shaking legs, careful to stay to the side as I peered through the blinds. A black sedan was parked directly across from my building. It hadn't been there when I closed the blinds an hour ago. As I watched, the driver's side window rolled down and I caught a glimpse of a man's face illuminated by the glow of a cell phone. He was watching my building. "Who is that?" My voice came out as a whisper. "I don't know yet, but they arrived 10 minutes after we did. They're not my people." Fear, real and cold, slithered down my spine. What do they want? You or information about you? Or leverage against me through you? A pause. "Miss Mitchell, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know why my father left those instructions. I don't know what connection you have to him. But I do know that he didn't make requests lightly, and he didn't protect people without reason. Whatever the truth is, he believed he needed protection. And right now, looking at that car across the street, I'm inclined to agree with him." I stared at the sedan, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The man in the car was still watching, still waiting. "What do you want me to do?" "Come with me. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can talk without an audience and figure out what this is all about. I give you my word, my personal word, that you won't be harmed. You'll be protected, you'll be treated with respect, and when we figure this out, you can make your own decisions about what happens next. Your word?" I let out a shaky breath. "I don't even know you." "No, but you know what's in that will. And you know that whatever else my father was, he was a man who kept his promises. He's asking me to keep this one for him. I'm asking you to let me try." I looked down at the papers in my hand, at my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. "Find her, bring her to me, protect her with your life, a stranger's last wish." A dead man's order, a mystery I didn't ask to be part of. But that car was still out there, and the man inside was still watching. I closed my eyes and made a decision that would change everything. "Give me 5 minutes to pack a bag." I'd expected Dante Romano to smile, to show some sign of satisfaction that I'd agreed. Instead, his expression through the peephole remained serious, almost grim. "Take 10, he said. "Pack enough for a week. Comfortable clothes, anything you need for work. Do you have your camera equipment here?" "Most of it. Why?" "Bring it. You're not going to stop living your life, Miss Mitchell. You're just going to do it somewhere safer while we figure this out." I unlocked the deadbolt with trembling fingers and opened the door. The peephole hadn't done Dante Romano justice. He was tall, at least 6'3", with dark hair cut short and dark eyes that assessed me in one sweeping glance. His face was all sharp angles, strong jaw, straight nose, high cheekbones. Handsome in a way that was almost intimidating, made more so by the absolute confidence in the way he stood. He was younger than I'd expected. Early 30s, maybe. Too young to be running whatever empire his father had left behind, but the two men flanking him showed no question about who was in charge. "Miss Mitchell," he gave a slight nod, respectful, his eyes never leaving my face. "I'm Dante, this is Tony and Marcus. They'll help you with your equipment if you'll allow them." Up close, I could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Grief, I realized. However complicated his father had been, Dante was mourning him. "I'm sorry about your father," I said quietly. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, maybe. "Thank you. Thank you. An awkward silence stretched between us. Behind him, Tony, or was it Marcus, cleared his throat gently. Dante blinked, seeming to remember where we were. Your bag. 10 minutes. Can I come inside, or would you prefer I wait out here? Every rational part of my brain screamed that letting him into my apartment was insane. But I'd already agreed to go with him, and somehow standing in the doorway felt more dangerous than having him inside with the door closed. You can come in, Tony and Marcus can wait in the hall. He nodded to the two men, who took up positions on either side of my door with military precision. Dante stepped inside, and my already small apartment seemed to shrink to claustrophobic proportions. He was too big, too present, too everything for this space filled with discount furniture and photography prints on the walls. His eyes went to those prints immediately. A black and white photo of an elderly couple holding hands in Boston Common. A color shot of a little girl laughing as she jumped in a puddle. A sunset over the harbor with sailboats silhouetted against the orange sky. You're talented, he said, his voice softer than before. Thank you. I moved toward my bedroom, hyper-aware of him in my space. I'll just be a few minutes. I threw clothes into my duffel bag with shaking hands. Jeans, comfortable shirts, one nice outfit just in case. Underwear, toiletries, my phone charger. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind raced. What was I doing? I was packing a bag to go with a dangerous stranger, because of a dead man's note and a suspicious car outside. But when I glanced through my bedroom window, I could see the black sedan from this angle too. Still there. Still watching. I grabbed my camera bag and laptop, my most precious possessions. If this went wrong, at least I'd have the tools of my trade. Maybe I could photograph my own kidnapping for evidence. The thought was so absurd I almost laughed. When I emerged from the bedroom, Dante was exactly where I'd left him, hands clasped in front of him, posture perfect. He hadn't touched anything, hadn't moved to explore. Somehow, that small show of respect made me feel slightly better about this insane decision. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be? He took my duffel bag without asking, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. His hands were warm, large enough to engulf mine completely. I felt a strange flutter in my stomach that I immediately pushed away. This was not the time to notice that Dante Romano was attractive. This was the time to stay alert and alive. Tony or Marcus, I still couldn't tell them apart, took my camera equipment with surprising gentleness. I've got it, miss. I'll be careful. Thank you. We moved into the hallway, and Dante locked my door with a key I hadn't given him. When I raised my eyebrows, he had the grace to look slightly sheepish. I had Tony pick the lock before I knocked. I needed to make sure you were alone, that it was safe to approach you directly. You broke into my apartment? Technically, I had someone else do it. He said it so matter-of-factly that I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Your security is terrible, by the way. A child could pick that lock. We'll need to address that. Like he was planning on being involved in my life beyond tonight. We took the stairs instead of the elevator. Too confined, Dante explained, with Tony in front, Dante beside me, and Marcus behind. A protective formation that made me feel simultaneously safer and more terrified. The lobby of my building was empty at this hour. Through the glass front doors, I could see a black SUV pulled up to the curb, engine running. And across the street, the sedan. They're going to follow us, I whispered. I know. Danny's hand touched the small of my back, gentle but firm, guiding me forward. Don't worry. We'll lose them. The night air was cold and damp with rain. I pulled my jacket tighter as Dante opened the back door of the SUV. The interior was all black leather and dark wood, more luxurious than any car I'd ever been in. After you, he said. I climbed in, and he slid in beside me. Tony took the driver's seat, Marcus the passenger side. Before my door was even fully closed, we were moving. I twisted in my seat to look back. The sedan's headlights came on, and it pulled away from the curb. They're following, I said unnecessarily. Not for long. Dante's voice was calm, almost bored. Tony knows what he's doing. What followed was the most terrifying 10 minutes of my life. Tony drove through Boston like he'd memorized every street, every alley, every shortcut. We wove through traffic, ran yellow lights that turned red as we passed under them. Took sudden turns that had me gripping the door handle. And through it all, Dante sat beside me, perfectly relaxed, occasionally glancing at his phone. Are they still back there? I asked after a particularly sharp turn. They lost us 3 blocks ago, Marcus said from the front. We're clear. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving me shaky and exhausted. Where are we going? I asked. Dante looked up from his phone, his dark eyes meeting mine. Somewhere safe. My home. You'll have your own room, your own space. There's security staff who can get you anything you need. Your home. It's either that or a hotel, and hotels aren't secure. Too many variables, too many access points. He studied my face. You're safe with me, Miss Mitchell. I promise you that. Sophie, I said quietly. If I'm going to your home, you should probably call me Sophie. The smallest smile touched his lips, there and gone so quickly I almost missed it. Sophie, and you should call me Dante. Mr. Romano was my father. We drove in silence for a while, leaving South Boston behind for the more upscale neighborhoods along the water. I watched the city pass by through tinted windows, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Of course. The will said to protect me with your life. That's extreme. People don't write things like that for strangers. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. My father didn't do anything without reason. If he left those instructions, there's a connection we haven't found yet. Something that made him believe you were important enough to protect. But what if there is no connection? What if it's a mistake? Then we'll figure that out too. He turned to face me more fully, his expression serious. But until we know for certain, I'm going to assume my father knew what he was doing. Which means keeping you safe is now my responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. I'm a complete stranger. Not anymore. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver through me. This man I met 30 minutes ago was prepared to upend his life to protect me because of words in a will. It should have been terrifying. It should have sent every red flag in my mind waving. But there was something in his eyes, a mixture of grief, duty, and something else I couldn't quite name that made me believe him. We pulled through a gate that opened automatically, then up a long driveway lined with manicured hedges. The mansion that came into view took my breath away. 3 stories of classic New England architecture, all brick and tall windows, lit from within by warm golden light. This is your home, I breathed. It was my father's, now it's mine. He said it without pride or arrogance, just a simple statement of fact. The car stopped at the front entrance, where an older woman in a simple black dress waited under the portico. She had silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Dante opened my door before Tony could come around. Sophie, this is Valentina. She manages the house and has been with our family for 30 years. If you need anything, she's the one to ask. Valentina came forward with a warm smile that eased some of my tension. Welcome, Miss Sophie. I prepared the blue room for you. I hope you'll be comfortable. Thank you. I managed. Valentina, Sophie's our guest, Dante said, his tone making it clear this was important. She's to be treated with the utmost respect and given anything she needs, and Val, she's under my personal protection. That extends to everyone in this house. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication. Valentina nodded seriously. Understood, signore. She led us inside, and I tried not to gape at the interior. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than I'd earn in my lifetime. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. The blue room turned out to be a suite bigger than my entire apartment. A king-sized bed with a blue silk coverlet, an attached bathroom with a soaking tub and separate shower. A sitting area with a fireplace and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens I couldn't see clearly in the dark. This is too much, I said. Dante set my duffel bag on the bench at the foot of the bed. It's what we have available. Please make yourself comfortable. Are you hungry? Thirsty? Now that he mentioned it, I was starving. I haven't eaten since lunch. Valentina will bring you something. He moved toward the door, then paused. Sophie, I know tonight has been overwhelming. I know you have questions, I have them too. But it's late and you're exhausted. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning and I'll tell you everything I know about my father's will and why your name might be in it. Okay, I wrapped my arms around myself. Dante? He turned back. Yes? Thank you for taking this seriously. For protecting me. Even though you don't know why. His expression softened slightly. You're welcome. Sleep well, Sophie. You're safe here. After he left, Valentina returned with a tray of food pasta with marinara sauce, fresh bread, a salad, and a glass of red wine. I ate sitting on the enormous bed, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. A few hours ago, I'd been editing wedding photos in my cramped apartment. Now I was in a mansion under the protection of a man whose last name made people nervous, all because a stranger had mentioned me in his will. Find her, bring her to me. Protect her with your life. What had Vincent Romano known about me that his own son didn't? What connection could there possibly be? I finished eating and took a long shower in the massive bathroom, letting the hot water ease the tension from my shoulders. Someone Valentina probably had left a silk nightgown on the bed. I put it on, feeling ridiculous in something so expensive, and climbed under the covers. The bed was absurdly comfortable. The sheets were soft, the pillows perfect. I should have fallen asleep immediately. Instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Wondering why a dead man had thought I needed protection. And wondering why, despite everything, I felt safer here with Dante Romano than I had in months. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close the curtains on. For a disoriented moment, I didn't know where I was. Then it all came rushing back, the midnight knock, the will, the black sedan, Dante Romano's dark eyes promising protection. I sat up, my heart racing, half expecting to find it had all been a strange dream. But no, I was still in the blue room with its silk sheets and expensive furniture. My duffel bag sat where Dante had left it. Through the windows, I could see formal gardens stretching toward a high stone wall. A soft knock on the door made me jump. "Miss Sophie?" Valentina's gentle voice called. "I have breakfast for you if you're awake." "Come in," I called, pulling the covers up self-consciously. Valentina entered with another tray, this one laden with coffee, fresh pastries, fruit, and scrambled eggs. She set it on the small table by the window with practiced efficiency. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Better than I expected, actually." I climbed out of bed, suddenly aware that I was wearing the nightgown she'd left. "Thank you for this." "And for the clothes last night," she waved a hand dismissively. "It's nothing. Signor Dante asked me to let you know he'll be in his office when you're ready to speak with him. There's no rush, take your time. If you need anything at all, just pick up that phone." She pointed to an antique telephone on the nightstand. "Press 0 and you'll reach me or one of the staff." After she left, I ate breakfast while looking out at the gardens. It was strange how normal this felt, how easily I could get used to being waited on. To sleeping in silk sheets, to eating food I didn't have to cook myself. That thought scared me more than the black sedan had. I showered again, then dressed in jeans and a simple sweater from my bag. My camera called to me from its bag in the corner, and I spent a few minutes checking that nothing had been damaged in the hasty move last night. Everything was fine, lenses intact, memory card secure. Finally, I couldn't put it off any longer. I needed answers, and Dante had promised to give them. I found my way downstairs by following the sound of voices. The house was even more impressive in daylight, all high ceilings and crown molding, with artwork that looked old and expensive. I passed several people who I assumed were staff, and they all greeted me politely by name. How many people lived and worked here? Dante's office was at the end of a long hallway. The door was partially open, and I could hear his voice inside speaking Italian. The language sounded natural on his tongue, the cadence smooth and effortless. I knocked softly, not wanting to interrupt. "Memento," he called, then continued speaking. After another minute, he switched to English. "Yes, I understand." "Handle it, ciao." "Come in, Sophie," he said before I could knock again. He was sitting behind a massive desk made of dark wood, his phone in his hand, dressed more casually than last night in black slacks and a charcoal gray sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. He looked tired still, but more alert than he had at midnight. "Good morning," he said, standing. Always the gentleman, I noted. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you." "Your home is beautiful. It serves its purpose." He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Please sit. Can I get you anything? More coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you." I sat, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. "You said you'd explain." "About the will, about your father." "I did." He sat back down, reaching for a folder on his desk. "I've been going through my father's papers all night, trying to find any mention of you or your family. So far, nothing." But I did find something interesting. He pulled out an old photograph and slid it across the desk to me, my breath caught. The woman in the photograph looked exactly like me. Same honey blonde hair, same blue-green eyes, same small scar on her chin that I'd gotten falling off a bike when I was 8. She was young in the photo, maybe early 20s, wearing a sundress and laughing at the camera. Who is this? I whispered. I don't know. But she was important to my father. This was in his personal safe, along with a few other photos of her. He pulled out 2 more. In one, she was with a man I assumed was Vincent Romano older, distinguished, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. In the other, she was alone on a beach, the wind catching her hair, her expression melancholy. She looks exactly like me. I know. Dante's dark eyes studied my face. Tell me about your family, Sophie. Your biological family. I don't know much. I was adopted when I was 2 years old by Michael and Susan Mitchell. They were wonderful parents. They died in a car accident when I was 19. The familiar pain of that loss tightened my chest. They always told me I was adopted, that my birth mother had loved me but couldn't keep me. They never had much information about her. The adoption was private, arranged through a lawyer who's since died. All they knew was that she was young, unmarried, and wanted me to have a good life. Do you know her name? No, the records were sealed. I tried to find them when I was 21, but I hit dead ends everywhere I looked. Dante leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. My father had a relationship before he married my mother. This was in the early 90s. The family didn't approve she wasn't Italian, wasn't from our world. According to what I pieced together from old conversations and hints from people who knew him then, he loved her deeply. But she disappeared suddenly. He never spoke about what happened, and he married my mother a year later. My heart was pounding. You think this woman is my mother? The resemblance is extraordinary. And the timing would be right if you're 27 now. You would have been born in 1997 or 1998. These photos look like they were taken in the mid-90s. I picked up the photograph of the woman on the beach, studying every detail. Why would she leave? If he loved her and she loved him? I don't know. But in my father's world, love isn't always enough. There are complications, dangers, expectations. He said it carefully, like he was picking his words with precision. It's possible she left to protect you. Or to protect herself. And your father spent 30 years looking for her daughter? I looked up at him. For me? It would seem so. Dante stood and walked to the window, his back to me. My father was many things, Sophie. He was hard when he needed to be, ruthless in business, feared by his enemies. But he was also loyal to those he loved. He kept his promises, even when it cost him. If he promised this woman he would protect her child, he would have meant it. And when he couldn't fulfill that promise himself, he asked you to do it for him. Dante turned back to face me, and the weight of responsibility in his eyes was staggering. Yes. I set the photograph down with shaking hands. So, what do we do now? We find out the truth. I have people looking into adoption records from that time period, searching for any connection to my father or this woman. I've also had my attorney pull all of my father's financial records from the 90s bank transfers, property purchases, anything that might give us a clue. That could take weeks. It could take months, he corrected. But in the meantime, you stay here, safe. I can't stay here for months. I have a business, clients waiting for their photos, weddings booked for next month. Then you work from here, you have your equipment. I can have my people deliver anything else you need from your apartment. Valentina can set up a workspace for you wherever you're most comfortable. I stood, frustrated by how easily he was rearranging my life. Dante, I appreciate everything you're doing. I really do. But I can't just move into your house indefinitely. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Someone was watching your apartment last night. Someone who knew your name appeared in my father's will and wanted to know why. Until we know who they are and what they want, you're not safe out there. You don't know that they meant me any harm. I don't know that they didn't. His jaw tightened. My father's last request was to protect you. I'm not going to fail him because you're too stubborn to accept help. I'm not stubborn, I'm practical. I have a life, Dante, bills to pay, a career that's barely supporting me. I can't just put everything on hold because of a might-be mother in an old photograph. Something flickered in his eyes. Frustration, maybe, or understanding. What if I hired you? What? You're a photographer. I have events coming up that need to be documented. Business dinners, charity galas, meetings that require a visual record. I'll pay you 3 times your normal rate and you can work from here. That way you're earning money and staying safe. It was too convenient, too perfect. You don't need a photographer. I do, actually. I've been meaning to hire someone for months. My father always had everything documented. It's useful for business, for records, for insurance purposes. The way he said insurance made it sound ominous. You'd be doing me a favor. I wanted to say no. Every independent bone in my body screamed to walk out, go back to my apartment, handle this myself. But the memory of that black sedan, the fear I'd felt looking out my window, the absolute certainty in Dante's voice when he said I was in danger. 1 week, I said finally. I'll stay for 1 week while you investigate. I'll take the job. But after that, if there's no solid evidence that I'm actually in danger, I'm going back to my life. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Deal. He offered his hand and I shook it. His grip was firm, warm, his hand engulfing mine completely. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through me, and from the way his eyes darkened slightly, he felt it too. I pulled my hand back quickly. So what now? Now, you get settled, work on whatever projects you have. I'll have Valentina show you the library. It has excellent light if you need a workspace. And tonight, we have our first event. Tonight? A business dinner. Nothing formal, just 8 people. I need you to photograph it discreetly, capture the interactions. Can you do that? It was the kind of work I'd done before at corporate events. Of course. Good. He checked his watch. I have meetings most of the day, but I'll make sure someone's available if you need anything. And Sophie? I paused at the door. Yes? Thank you. For trusting me enough to stay. I met his dark eyes and felt that strange flutter again. Thank you for taking your father's promise seriously. After I left his office, I let Valentina give me a tour of the house. It was massive 14 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, a library that could have been in a movie, a gym, an indoor pool, and a kitchen that made me want to cry with envy. This is all too much, I murmured as we stood in the library. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in perfect natural light, and shelves filled with leather-bound books lined every wall. Valentina smiled. Senora Vincent built this house for entertaining, for family. It's meant to be lived in, not just looked at. Her expression grew fond. He always said a house wasn't a home until it was filled with the people you loved. Were you close to him? Very. I came to work for him when my husband died 30 years ago. I had nothing, no family, no prospects. He gave me a job, a home, a purpose. She touched my arm gently. He was a good man, Miss Sophie. Whatever you hear about him, whatever people say, he was a good man who took care of those he loved. After the tour, I sat at my laptop at the massive desk in the library. I had 3 weddings worth of photos to edit, and losing myself in work seemed like the best way to stop my mind from spinning with questions. But I kept looking at the photograph Dante had given me, the woman who looked so much like me. Who was she? What had happened to her? And why did Vincent Romano spend 30 years trying to protect her daughter? Around noon, Valentina brought me lunch on a tray along with a note from Dante. Don't skip meals. You'll need your energy for tonight. I smiled despite myself at his bossy tone. The afternoon passed quickly as I lost myself in editing. The couple from the wedding had been so photogenic, so genuinely happy, that the images practically edited themselves. I was adjusting the color balance on a photo of their first kiss when a throat cleared behind me. I spun around to find a man in the doorway, early 40s, shorter than Dante, but powerfully built, with sharp eyes that assessed me quickly. Miss Mitchell, I am Anthony Russo, Mr. Romano's head of security. I wanted to introduce myself and give you this. He held out a cell phone. Your personal phone isn't secure. Use this one instead. It has my number programmed in as well as Mr. Romano's and Valentina's. If you need anything or if anything seems wrong, you call immediately. I took the phone, noting how much heavier it felt than my regular one. Is something wrong? Just a precaution. Mr. Romano wants you to have the best protection possible. His expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, miss, I've worked for this family for 15 years. If Dante Romano says he'll keep you safe, you can believe it. He doesn't make promises he can't keep. After Anthony left, I stared at the phone in my hand. This was really happening. I was really being protected by a mafia family because of a name in a will. My old life seemed very far away. The dinner party started at 7. I'd spent an hour getting ready, finally settling on black slacks and a simple black blouse that would let me blend into the background. Dante had said discreet, so discreet I would be. I arrived in the dining room at 6:30 to scout out the best angles for photographs. The room was stunning, a table that could seat 20 set for 8 with crystal stemware catching the light from an enormous chandelier. The walls were decorated with oil paintings of Italian landscapes, and French doors opened onto a terrace overlooking the gardens. "You're early. Good." I turned to find Dante in the doorway, and my breath caught. He was in a full suit, now charcoal gray, with a crisp white shirt, no tie. He'd shaved since this morning, and his hair was styled with product that probably cost more than my camera. He looked powerful, dangerous, and unfairly attractive. "I wanted to get a sense of the space," I said, proud that my voice came out steady. "Who's coming tonight?" "Business associates. 2 are legitimate investors in my properties. One is a city councilman. One owns a chain of restaurants. The others..." He shrugged. "Let's just say they have diverse interests. You want me to photograph criminals? I want you to photograph a business dinner. What my guests choose to do in their private lives isn't my concern." His eyes met mine. "But I need to know who speaks to who makes promises, who looks uncomfortable." Photos capture details that memory misses. So this wasn't just documentation. This was intelligence gathering. "Where should I position myself?" I asked, deciding not to comment on the implications. He walked me through the room, pointing out angles, suggesting moments to capture. His hand brushed my lower back as he guided me to a corner that would give me a clear view of the entire table, and I fought to ignore the warmth that spread from that simple touch. "Be invisible," he said. "They'll know you're here, but I want them to forget you're here. Can you do that?" "It's what I do at every wedding." I lifted my camera. People stopped noticing the photographer after the first 10 minutes. Good. He checked his watch. "They'll be arriving soon. If you need a break, there's a small powder room just through that door. Help yourself to food and wine if you want it. Dante?" I caught his arm before he could leave, then immediately regretted the contact. His forearm was solid muscle under his sleeve. "What should I do if someone asks why I'm here?" "Tell them you're my photographer. You're documenting important family events." His expression was unreadable. "And if anyone makes you uncomfortable in any way, you come find me immediately." The guests began arriving at 7 sharp. I positioned myself in the corner Dante had indicated, camera ready, and watched. First came an older couple, the city councilman and his wife. Then 2 men in their 50s who arrived together, speaking rapid Italian. A younger man, maybe 40, with a beautiful woman on his arm who couldn't have been more than 25. And finally, a distinguished gentleman with silver hair who greeted Dante with a warm embrace in rapid Italian that sounded affectionate. Dante played the perfect host, greeting everyone warmly, introducing the councilman's wife to the other guests, making sure everyone had drinks. He was charming, attentive, and completely in control of the room. I snapped photos discreetly, capturing moments as they unfolded naturally. The councilman leaning close to whisper something to one of the Italian-speaking men. The young woman's bored expression when her companion wasn't looking. The way the silver-haired gentleman watched Dante with unmistakable pride. Dinner was served course after course of Italian food that made my mouth water. I tried to stay focused on my work, but the conversation was fascinating even when I didn't fully understand it. They spoke in a mixture of English and Italian, discussing everything from real estate development to city politics to the upcoming mayoral race. The councilman made jokes that everyone laughed at too hard. The restaurant owner complained about new health regulations. The 2 men who'd arrived together spoke quietly about shipping schedules. And through it all, Dante orchestrated everything with subtle precision. A question here, a comment there, steering conversation, gathering information, making mental notes of promises made and favors owed. I was watching a master at work. Around 9, one of the younger men, the one with the beautiful companion, finally acknowledged my presence. "Dante, you didn't tell us you had such a beautiful photographer. What's your name, sweetheart?" I bristled at the condescension in his tone, but kept my expression neutral. "Sophie." "Sophie," he repeated, drawing out my name. "You know, I have some events coming up that could use your services. Maybe we could discuss it over drinks sometime?" Before I could respond, Danny's voice cut across the table like a blade. Sophie works exclusively for me, Marco, and she's not interested in drinks. The room went very quiet. Marco's smile faltered and he held up his hands in surrender. My apologies, Dante. I didn't realize she was. Under your protection. The way he said protection made it sound like something more. Several of the other guests exchanged glances. She is, Dante said flatly. And I'd appreciate it if everyone remembered that. The message was clear. I was off limits. The silver-haired gentleman smiled into his wine glass, looking amused. The councilman shifted uncomfortably, and Marco looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. After dinner, as the guests moved to the sitting room for after-dinner drinks, Dante appeared at my elbow. You can take a break now, he said quietly. You've got enough. That was intense. Marco's an idiot who doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. His jaw was tight with irritation. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It's fine. I've had worse at weddings. Drunk groomsmen are the worst. I paused. Who was the older man, the one who hugged you when he arrived? Dante's expression softened. Uncle Leo, my father's younger brother. He's been helping me navigate everything since. He trailed off. Since your father died? Yes, on impulse, I touched his arm gently. I'm sorry. I know this must be incredibly hard, taking over everything while you're still grieving. For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw the exhaustion and grief underneath. Thank you. It's hard. We stood there for a moment, my hand on his arm, his dark eyes searching my face. The sounds of laughter and conversation from the other room seemed very far away. Sophie, Dante. Uncle Leo's voice called from the sitting room. Come settle an argument about the Red Sox. The moment broke. Dante stepped back, the mask sliding back into place. I should get back to them. You should get some rest. Tomorrow we can go through the photos together. I nodded, suddenly aware of how tired I was. Good night, Dante. Good night, Sophie. I slipped away to the library to pack up my equipment, my mind spinning. The way Dante had defended me at dinner, the intensity in his eyes just now, the protectiveness that went beyond simple duty, it all felt like more than just following his father's orders. But that was dangerous thinking. Dante Romano was a powerful man in a dangerous world, and I was just a photographer caught up in a mystery. Getting emotionally involved would be the worst mistake I could make. I just had to remember that. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. I'd wake up in the blue room, have breakfast brought by Valentina, then spend my mornings editing photos in the library. Afternoons, I'd explore the gardens with my camera, capturing the formal hedges and hidden fountains I discovered. Evenings, Dante would often join me for dinner, sometimes just the two of us in the small dining room. Sometimes with Uncle Leo or Anthony, we talked about everything and nothing. I learned that Dante had studied business at Harvard, that he spoke 4 languages, that he never wanted to take over his father's empire but felt honor-bound to do so. He learned about my adoptive parents, my struggling photography business, my dream of one day having my own gallery. We didn't talk about the will or the investigation or the woman in the photographs. It felt like we were both avoiding the elephant in the room, pretending this was a normal situation. On the 4th morning, I was editing photos of the gardens when Anthony appeared in the library doorway, his expression grim. Miss Mitchell, I need you to come with me now. My heart jumped into my throat. What's wrong? Your apartment. Someone broke in last night. The drive to South Boston took 20 minutes. Anthony drove while I sat in the back seat, my stomach in knots. Dante had left early for a meeting, but Anthony had already called him. He was meeting us there. When we pulled up to my building, 2 police cars were parked outside. My landlord, Mr. Chun, was standing on the steps, talking to an officer. Sophie. He hurried over as I got out of the car. I'm so sorry. I came to fix the sink like you asked, and I found your door open, everything. He gestured helplessly. The apartment was destroyed. My furniture had been overturned, cushions slashed, drawers dumped. My clothes were scattered across the floor. The few valuable things I own, my backup camera, my grandmother's jewelry box, my laptop, were gone. But that wasn't the worst part. On the wall above my bed, someone had spray-painted a message in red, "Where is she?" I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at those words, my whole body going cold. Sophie, Dante's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him striding down the hallway, still in his business suit, his face a mask of controlled fury. Are you all right? I'm fine. I wasn't here. His eyes went to the message on the wall and his jaw clenched. Anthony, get her out of here. Now. No. I pushed past him into the apartment. This is my home. My things? There's nothing here worth staying for. Dante followed me in, careful not to touch anything. The police will document everything, file a report, but we both know they won't find whoever did this. Who's she? I asked, pointing to the wall. Are they looking for me? For the woman in the photos? For someone else? I don't know. But we're going to find out. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Leo, I need you to send a team to Sophie Mitchell's apartment. I want to know who was here, how they got in, and what they were looking for. No, I'll explain later. Just do it. A police officer appeared in the doorway, a young woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. Miss Mitchell? I'm Officer Kim. I need to ask you some questions. For the next hour, I gave my statement. No, I didn't know who would do this. No, I hadn't noticed anyone following me. Yes, I'd been staying with friends for a few days. No, I didn't have any enemies that I knew of. All lies, but I could hardly tell the police that I was hiding in a mob boss's mansion because his dead father's will mentioned me. Officer Kim seemed skeptical but didn't push. She gave me a card and told me to call if I remembered anything. After she left, Donnie's team arrived 3 men in suits who moved through the apartment with professional efficiency, photographing everything, dusting for prints, examining the spray paint. I sank onto my ruined couch, my head in my hands. This was really happening. Someone was looking for me. Someone violent enough to destroy my apartment, to leave threatening messages. Hey, Dante sat beside me, his presence solid and reassuring. We're going to figure this out. What if we can't? What if they find me? They won't. I won't let them. He lifted my chin gently, forcing me to meet his eyes. I promised my father I would protect you, Sophie. That's not a promise I take lightly. Why? I whispered. Why is this so important to you? You didn't even know your father cared about me until a week ago. His thumb brushed my cheek, wiping away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. Because he cared. Because you're in danger because of something connected to our family. And because he paused, his dark eyes searching my face. Because I'm starting to care too. The admission hung in the air between us. I should have pulled away, should have reminded myself that this was temporary, that I was just an obligation to him. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his certainty. We should go, he said finally, his voice rougher than usual. There's nothing more we can do here, back at the mansion. I retreated to the blue room and curled up on the bed, trying to process everything. My apartment, my sanctuary, had been violated. Someone was hunting for me, and I didn't even know why. A soft knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called. Valentina entered with a tray of tea and cookies. I thought you might need this. Thank you. I sat up, accepting the cup she offered. Valentina, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. You said you knew Dante's father well. Was he the kind of man who would protect someone he'd never met just because of a promise? She sat on the edge of the bed, her expression thoughtful. Vincent Romano was many things. Ruthless in business, feared by his enemies, powerful beyond measure. But he was also a man of honor. Once he gave his word, he kept it, no matter the cost. She patted my hand. If he promised someone he would protect you, he meant it. And Dante is his son in all the ways that matter. But why would he promise? What could I possibly have meant to him? Love makes us do things that don't always make sense, she said gently. From what I understand, Vincent loved deeply and fiercely. If the woman in those photographs was important to him, then protecting our child would have been important too. After Valentina left, I tried to rest but couldn't shake the image of those words on my wall. Where is she? Were they looking for me or for my biological mother? And what would happen if they found whoever they were searching for? That evening, Dante knocked on my door. I have something to show you, he said when I opened it. My team found something in your apartment? I followed him to his office, where photographs were spread across his desk. Close-ups of the spray paint, of boot prints in the dust, of a cigarette butt found near my door. We ran the prints, he said, pointing to one image. They matched someone in the system, a low-level enforcer for the Castellano family. Who are they? One of the families that would have been rivals to my father. They've been pushing into our territory since he died, testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. And they think I'm a weakness. They think you're important to me because you were important to my father. which makes you valuable for leverage. I sank into one of his chairs. So what do? We find out what they know and make sure they understand you're untouchable. His voice was hard, dangerous. And we figure out why Vincent protected you. Because that's the key to all of this. He pulled out another photograph, this one from his father's safe. It showed the mystery woman again, but this time she was holding a baby. A tiny infant with a shock of blonde hair and wide eyes. This was with the other photos, Dante said quietly. On the back, there's a date June 10th, 1998. I did the math. That's 2 weeks after I was born. I know. He handed me the photo. Sophie, I think this is you. I stared at the image, my hand shaking. The woman who looked like me, holding a baby who could have been me. Both of them looking at the camera with expressions of such love and sadness that it made my chest ache. Then she's my mother, I whispered. It appears so. And my father knew her, cared about her enough to keep these photos for 30 years. Dante's expression was somber. We need to find out what happened to her. Why she gave you up, where she went, if she's still alive. And how do we do that? I have people searching adoption records, hospital records, anything from that time period. We'll find the truth, Sophie, I promise you. Another promise. Another vow to protect me, to help me, to stand between me and whatever danger was lurking. I looked up at this man who'd appeared in my life less than a week ago and completely appended it. This powerful, dangerous, complicated man who'd taken his father's dying wish and made it his personal mission. Why are you doing this? I asked. Really? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low, honest. At first, it was duty, honoring my father's last request. But now he met my eyes. Now it's more than that. You're brave, Sophie. You're talented, kind, stronger than you give yourself credit for. And you deserve to know the truth about where you came from. He stood and came around the desk, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to see his face. And maybe, he said softly, I'm doing this because for the first time since my father died, I have a purpose beyond just surviving each day. Taking care of you, protecting you, solving this mystery, it gives me something to focus on besides grief. The honesty in his words, the vulnerability he was showing took my breath away. Dante, his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at it and cursed under his breath. I have to take this. We'll talk more tomorrow. After he left, I sat in his office holding the photograph of the woman and baby, tracing the lines of their faces with my finger. Who were you? I whispered to the image. And why did you leave me? The photograph, of course, didn't answer. But somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. And with Dante Romano's help, I was going to find it, no matter what it cost. The breakthrough came 3 days later. I was in the library editing photos of a charity gala Dante had hosted the night before when Anthony appeared in the doorway with an urgent expression. Miss Mitchell, Dante needs you in his office. We found something. I practically ran down the hallway. Dante was at his desk with Uncle Leo and a woman I'd never met middle-aged, professional-looking with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Sophie. Dante stood when I entered. This is Margaret Chen. She's a private investigator who specializes in adoption cases. Margaret, this is Sophie Mitchell. Margaret smiled warmly and shook my hand. Miss Mitchell, I believe I found your biological mother. My knees went weak. Dante was immediately at my side, his hand on my elbow steadying me. Sit, he said gently, guiding me to a chair. Margaret, tell her what you found. Margaret pulled out a folder thick with documents. Your birth mother's name was Rachel Cooper. She was 23 when you were born, working as a waitress in Boston. According to hospital records, she gave birth to you at Mass General on June 1st, 1998. But there were complications. What kind of complications? Medical ones. The delivery was difficult and Rachel had significant health issues afterward. But there were also other complications. Margaret pulled out a police report. 2 weeks after you were born, Rachel disappeared. She left you with a neighbor, saying she'd be back in a few hours. She never returned. The room spun. She abandoned me? We don't know what happened, Dante said quietly. But we're going to find out, Margaret continued. I found Rachel's last known address, a small apartment in Southie. The landlord from that time is still alive, and he remembers her. He said she was terrified the last few weeks she lived there, constantly looking over her shoulder, jumping at shadows. He thought she had an abusive boyfriend. Did she? I asked. Not that I could find. But I did find this. Margaret pulled out another document, a rental agreement. And there, in the section for emergency contacts, was a name that made my blood run cold. Thomas Romano. I looked at Dante. Who is Thomas Romano? The expression on his face told me everything I needed to know before he spoke. My uncle. My father's older brother. His voice was tight. He died 26 years ago, murdered. Uncle Leo leaned forward, his expression grave. Thomas was difficult, volatile. He had a temper and made bad decisions. He nearly brought the family down with his recklessness. What happened to him? I asked. The two men exchanged glances. Finally, Dante spoke. He was killed by our own family. For betraying them, for putting everyone at risk. My father was the one who gave the order. The silence in the room was deafening. You think Thomas was my biological father, I said, the pieces clicking into place, and Rachel was running from him. Or from your family. It would explain everything, Margaret said gently. Why Vincent protected you, why he searched for you, why he left those instructions. You were his brother's child, his niece. And Rachel was the woman he loved, the one he mentioned in the will. I stood abruptly, needing to move to process. So Vincent Romano loved a woman who was pregnant with his brother's child. Thomas was killed by the family. Rachel disappeared, leaving me behind. And Vincent spent 30 years looking for me to, what, make up for killing my father? To protect you, Dante said firmly. To make sure you were safe, that you had a good life. Rachel must have asked him to watch over you before she disappeared. Where did she go? What happened to her? Margaret's expression turned sad. I'm still searching. But Sophie, you need to prepare yourself. A woman who disappeared under those circumstances, who was that terrified? There's a possibility she didn't survive. The implication hit me like a physical blow. My mother might be dead. Might have been dead for 26 years. I need air, I managed, heading for the door. Sophie, Dante started. Just give me a minute, please. I made it to the gardens before the tears came. I sank onto a stone bench, my whole body shaking with sobs I couldn't control. My mother had loved a dangerous man. My father had been a criminal killed by his own family. And the man who'd searched for me my whole life had been the one who gave the order that made me an orphan. Sophie. I looked up to find Dante standing a few feet away, his expression torn between wanting to comfort me and giving me space. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm so sorry this is the truth we found. Your father killed mine. Yes, he didn't try to deny it or make excuses. If Thomas was your father, then yes. My father gave the order that killed yours. And then he searched for me out of guilt. Maybe. Or maybe out of love for your mother. Or maybe because despite everything Thomas did, he was still family. And you were the innocent child who didn't deserve to pay for your father's mistakes. Dante moved closer, his voice gentle. Does it matter why? The result is the same. He wanted you protected. He wanted you safe. It matters to me, I said, wiping my eyes angrily. It matters that I'm here because of murder and guilt and complicated family politics. You're here because my father kept a promise to someone he loved. You're here because I'm keeping that promise for him. Dante sat beside me on the bench, careful not to touch me. And you're here because despite everything, despite the circumstances that brought you into my life, I'm grateful you're here. I turned to look at him. Dante, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I know this makes everything more complicated. But it doesn't change the fact that you're in danger, that the Castellanos are looking for you, that I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Why? I demanded. Why do you care so much? Is it just guilt? Obligation? No. He turned to face me fully, his dark eyes intense. At first, yes, it was duty, honoring my father's wishes. But somewhere in the last week, it became more than that. You became more than that. My heart was pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying that when I saw your apartment destroyed, I wanted to hunt down everyone responsible and make them pay. I'm saying that when you smile at something I've said, it's the best part of my day. I'm saying that the thought of you going back to your life, leaving this house, leaving me. He stopped, his jaw clenched. It terrifies me. Dante, this is crazy. We barely know each other. I know, but when have feelings ever been rational? He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and cupped my face in his hand. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me it's just me and I'll back off. I'll keep protecting you, but I'll keep my distance. I should have told him that. Should have reminded him that this situation was temporary, that I had a life to get back to, that getting involved with him would be the worst possible decision. But I couldn't, because he was right, I did feel it. The pull toward him, the safety I felt in his presence, the way my heart raced when he was near. I feel it, I whispered. But that doesn't mean we should. He kissed me. It was gentle at first, questioning, giving me the chance to pull away. But when I leaned into him instead, the kiss deepened. His hand slid into my hair and I gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. It was everything a first kiss should be: sweet and intense, tender and passionate, full of promise and possibility. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I shouldn't have done that, Dante said, his forehead resting against mine. This complicates everything. Yes, it does. But I didn't let go of his shirt. Sophie, I need you to understand something. My world is dangerous. The people in it, the things I have to do to maintain order, to protect what's mine, it's not safe. Getting close to me puts you at even more risk. I'm already at risk. Someone already destroyed my apartment. The Castellanos already think I'm important to you. But if this, he gestured between us, if this becomes real, it's not just about protection anymore. It's about you becoming part of my life. Part of this world. I pulled back to look at him properly. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to give you a choice of all the information. Because once you make this choice, once you decide to be with me, there's no going back. People will see you as mine to protect, to use as leverage. You'll be a target. I'm already a target. A temporary one. We find out what the Castellanos want, we deal with them, you go back to your life. But if you're with me, he swallowed hard. You'll always be a target, always be in danger. Always be looking over your shoulder. Then why are you telling me this? Why not just let me make my own choice? Because I respect you too much to trap you in something you don't fully understand. Because you deserve to know what you're signing up for. His hand touched my face again, so gentle despite the calluses on his palm. Because even though every selfish part of me wants you to choose this, to choose me, the part that cares about you wants you to be safe. Even if that means walking away. I thought about everything that had happened in the past week. The fear, the confusion, the danger. But I also thought about the safety I felt with Dante, the way he'd honored his father's promise, the gentleness he showed despite his power. What if I don't want to walk away? I asked quietly. His eyes darkened. Then I'll spend every day making sure you never regret that choice. He kissed me again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me close, and I melted into him, letting everything else fade away. When we finally broke apart, the sun was setting, painting the gardens in shades of gold and amber. We should go back inside, Dante said, his voice rough. Figure out our next move with the Castellanos. What is our next move? His expression hardened. We find out what they want. And we make it very clear that you're under my protection. Permanently. The meeting with the Castellanos was scheduled for 2 days later at a neutral location, a private room in a restaurant in the North End. Dante had insisted I stay at the mansion, protected by Anthony and his team, but I'd refused. They're looking for me, I'd argued. They need to see that I'm not hiding, that I'm not afraid. You should be afraid, Dante had countered. These aren't good people, Sophie. Neither are you, technically. And I'm still here. That had earned me a small smile. Fair point. So now I sat in Dante's SUV, Anthony driving, Marcus in the passenger seat, heading into what could be a very dangerous situation. Dante sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee, a gesture of comfort that had become natural over the past 2 days. We'd spent those days in a strange bubble of domesticity mixed with strategy sessions. We'd kiss in the library between planning meetings, hold hands during dinner while discussing the Castellano family's weaknesses, fall asleep on the couch together while reviewing Margaret's research. It should have felt wrong given the circumstances. Instead, it felt right in a way nothing else ever had. Remember the plan, Dante said as we pulled up to the restaurant. You stay close to me. You don't engage with anyone unless I indicate it's safe. And if anything at all feels wrong, you tell me immediately. I remember I squeezed his hand. I'll be fine. The restaurant was closed for our private party. We were escorted to a back room where a table was set for 4. 2 men were already seated, one older, distinguished with cold eyes, and one younger, probably early 30s, with a cruel smile. Dante Romano. The older man stood, offering his hand. Thank you for meeting with us. Angelo Castellano. Dante shook his hand briefly. And your son Marco, we've met. Marco's eyes slid to me and recognition flickered. The photographer from your dinner party. So the rumors are true, she's under your protection. Sophie Mitchell is not your concern, Dante said flatly, pulling out my chair before sitting beside me. You wanted this meeting. So talk. Angelo settled back into his chair, his expression calculating. We'll get to business in a moment. But first, introductions. Miss Mitchell, you're a hard woman to find information about. I'm a photographer. There's not much to find. Indeed. No criminal record, no outstanding debts, no connections to our world. And yet, Vincent Romano left specific instructions about you in his will. Instructions that have made you very interesting to certain parties. Get to the point, Dante said, his voice hard. The point is that we know who she is. Marco leaned forward, his smile predatory. We know about Rachel Cooper, about Thomas Romano, about the whole messy family drama from 30 years ago. My blood ran cold. How did they know? Angelo continued, we also know that the reason Vincent protected her all those years, the reason he searched for her was because he made a promise to Rachel before she died. Rachel's dead? The words escaped before I could stop them. Oh, you didn't know? Marco's smile widened. Found in the Charles River 26 years ago. Officially ruled a suicide, but we all know better, don't we? Danny's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. A reminder to stay calm, to not react. What do you want? Dante asked. Information, Angelo said simply. Vincent Romano had something of ours, a ledger recording certain transactions between our families. Transactions that, if made public, would be very inconvenient for us. I don't know anything about a ledger. Perhaps. But Miss Mitchell might. Angelo's cold eyes fixed on me. Vincent was thorough. If he protected you for 30 years, if he searched for you, if he left those instructions, he would have left you something else, something important. Where is it, Miss Mitchell? I don't know what you're talking about. Come now. The woman in the photograph with Vincent holding the baby, that was your mother, wasn't it? And she was more than just Thomas's girlfriend. She was Vincent's confidant, his trusted assistant. She knew everything about the family business. Dante stiffened beside me. What? Oh, you didn't know that part? Marco laughed. Rachel Cooper worked for Vincent Romano for 2 years before she got involved with Thomas. She kept his books, managed his records, knew where all the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. My mind raced. My mother had worked for Vincent, had been part of this world. Rachel destroyed those records before she died, Dante said. My father told me that himself. Did he? Or did he tell you that to protect you from knowing the truth? Angelo leaned back. We've been very patient, Dante. We've respected the transition of power, haven't pushed too hard on territory disputes. But we need that ledger. And we believe Sophie Mitchell knows where it is. I don't, I said firmly. I was adopted at 2 years old. I have no memories of my mother, no belongings from her, nothing that would lead me to any ledger. Then we have a problem. Angelo's tone turned cold. Because until we find that ledger, Miss Mitchell represents a significant risk to our operations. She could have information she doesn't even know she has. She could be a liability. The threat was clear. I was in danger not because of what I knew, but because of what I might know. Dante stood abruptly, pulling me up with him. This meeting is over. Sophie is under my protection. If you come after her in any way, you'll be declaring war on my family. Are you prepared for that? Angelo stood as well, his expression hardening. Are you prepared to start a war over a woman you've known for less than 2 weeks? Yes. Dante's voice was absolute. Without question, the 2 men stared at each other, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. Finally, Angelo smiled a cold, calculating expression. Very well. But understand this, if that ledger surfaces, if any information from it becomes public, we'll know who to blame. And Sophie Mitchell will pay the price for her mother's choices. We left the restaurant in tense silence. Once we were in the SUV, Anthony driving fast through the darkening streets, Dante pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, he said into my hair. I'm sorry you had to hear that. About your mother, about everything. She worked for your father, I said, my voice muffled against his chest. She was part of this world. Part of the violence and crime and everything I've spent my whole life trying to stay away from. She was trying to survive. To make a life for herself. He pulled back to look at me, and she loved you enough to protect you from it. She gave you up so you could have a normal life. But it wasn't enough. I'm still here, still caught up in it. Because of me. Because I brought you into this. His expression was tortured. Maybe the Castellanos are right. Maybe the safest thing would be for you to disappear again, to go somewhere they can't find you. Is that what you want? God, no. He cupped my face in his hands. But what I want doesn't matter. Your safety matters. Then keep me safe. Fight for me. Protect me. I covered his hands with mine. I'm choosing this, Dante. I'm choosing you. Even knowing the risks, even knowing the danger. I'm staying. He kissed me, Ben, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of me. And I kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring everything I felt into it, the fear, the desire, the impossible hope that somehow we could make this work. When we got back to the mansion, Uncle Leo was waiting at Dante's office with Margaret Chun and a man I'd never met, elderly, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Sophie, Leo said gently, this is Father Michael. He was the priest of the church your mother attended before she died. I sank into a chair, exhausted. Did you know her? I did. Father Michael sat across from me. She came to confession regularly and we spoke often. She was a good woman, Sophie. Troubled, yes, and frightened, but good. What happened to her? He sighed. She was caught between two brothers, Vincent, who loved her, and Thomas, who obsessed over her. When she became pregnant with Thomas's child, Vincent still offered to protect her, to help her. But Thomas was furious, possessive. He threatened her, threatened the baby, so the family killed him to protect her, partly, but also because Thomas had become a liability in other ways. His death served multiple purposes. Father Michael's expression was sad. Rachel knew Vincent had given the order. She couldn't stay, couldn't let her child grow up in that world. So she planned to disappear with you, but she never made it. No, someone found out about her plan. Someone who wanted to use her knowledge against Vincent. They took her, tortured her for information about where Vincent kept his records. When she wouldn't talk, they killed her and dumped her body in the river. I felt Dante's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. Before she died, Father Michael continued, she managed to get a message to me. She made me promise to make sure you were safe, that you went to a good family. She also gave me something to hold for you in case you ever came looking for answers. He pulled out a small wooden box worn with age. She said if you were smart enough to find her story, you deserved to know the truth. I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, written in elegant handwriting. My dearest Sophie, if you're reading this, it means I failed. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I tried so hard to protect you, to give you a life away from all of this. Vincent Romano is a good man caught in a bad life. Your father, Thomas, was a bad man who I tried to love. You are innocent of all of it, and you deserve better. I've hidden something for Vincent Insurance against the people who want to hurt us. But I can't tell him where it is, can't risk it being found. Only you can find it if you need to. Only you have the key. Look for the place where we were happiest, where the light hits the water at sunset. Look for your name in stone, and underneath you'll find the truth. Stay safe, my love. Be happy. Live the life I couldn't give you. Love always, Mom. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. My mother had loved me, had tried to protect me, had died trying to keep me safe. The ledger, Dante said quietly. She hid it somewhere for you to find. But I don't know where we were happiest. I don't remember anything about her, Margaret spoke up. I found baptismal records for you at a small church in Southie, St. Margaret's. Your mother had you baptized there 2 weeks before she died. Father Michael nodded. St. Margaret's has a memorial garden. People sometimes place stones there with loved ones' names. Hope flickered in my chest. We need to go there, no? It's nearly midnight, Anthony pointed out. I don't care. I stood, the letter clutched in my hand. If there is even a chance that we can find what she hid, we have to look. Dante studied my face, then nodded. Anthony, get the car. Leo, you're with us. Margaret, Father Michael, thank you for everything. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to St. Margaret's Church, a small brick building with a modest garden behind it. Anthony had brought flashlights, and we spread out looking for any stone with my name on it. Here, I called after 10 minutes of searching. It was a small memorial stone partially hidden by overgrown bush. Sophie Elizabeth Cooper, it read. May you always walk in light. Dante and Anthony began digging around the stone while Leo kept watch. It didn't take long. Barely a foot down, wrapped in plastic, was a leather journal. My hand shook as I opened it. Page after page of handwritten notes, dates, names, amounts. Transactions between the Castellanos and the Romanos going back 40 years. Illegal deals, bribes, murders. Everything Angela Castellano had been afraid of. This could destroy them, Dante said quietly, reading over my shoulder. This is exactly what they've been looking for. What do we do with it? I asked. He met my eyes. That's your choice, Sophie. It's your mother's legacy, her insurance policy. You decide what happens to it. I looked down at the journal, at my mother's careful handwriting documenting crimes and violence. She died protecting this information. She died protecting me. We make copies, I said finally. We keep the originals somewhere safe. And we let the Castellanos know we have it, that if anything happens to me, to Dante, to anyone in this family, it goes public. Dante smiled. Insurance. Just like my mother intended. We drove back to the mansion in silence, the weight of what we'd found settling over all of us. This changed everything. The Castellanos couldn't touch me now without risking exposure. I had leverage. I had power. Later that night, after Uncle Leo had left and Anthony had secured the journal and Dante's safe, I stood in my room staring out at the gardens, trying to process everything. A soft knock made me turn. Can I come in? Dante asked from the doorway. Always. He crossed the room and pulled me into his arms, and I went willingly, meeting his strength, his warmth, his certainty. Your mother was brave, he said quietly. She played the long game, protected you in the only way she could. She died because of your family. Because of this world. I know, and I can't change that. I can't undo the past or make up for what my father did. He pulled back to look at me. But I can promise you that I'll spend every day making sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Making sure you're safe, happy, protected. Dante, I love you, Sophie. The words were simple, honest, devastating. I know it's too soon, I know the circumstances are complicated, but I love you. And I need you to know that before you decide what happens next. My heart felt too big for my chest. What happens next? You choose? You can take the journal and disappear, start over somewhere new with enough money to never worry again. Or you can stay here with me, knowing that my world is dangerous but that I'll never let anything happen to you. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. I won't lie and say it will be easy. There will be threats, dangers, complications. But there will also be this us, every day. Building something real. I thought about my old life, the tiny apartment, the struggling business, the loneliness I'd gotten so used to, I'd forgotten what it felt like to not be alone. And I thought about this new life, the danger, yes, but also the passion, the protection, the feeling of being cherished, of mattering to someone who would move heaven and earth to keep me safe. I love you too, I said, watching his eyes widen with surprise and hope. And I'm staying. Not because I'm afraid, not because I need protection, but because I choose you. I choose this. I choose us. He kissed me then, and it felt like a promise. Like a vow, like the beginning of something that would last forever. We should probably tell the Castellanos about the journal, I murmured against his lips. Tomorrow, he said, pulling me toward the bed. Tonight is just for us, and it was. We made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies, speaking promises with touches and kisses instead of words. When I fell asleep in his arms, I felt safe in a way I never felt before. I'd found my mother's legacy. I'd found the truth about my past, and I'd found a future I never expected. With a man who loved me enough to risk everything. With a family that had destroyed mine but now protected me as one of their own. It was complicated and messy and probably insane. But it was mine, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. The art gallery was packed. My photographs lined the walls, black and white images of Boston's underbelly mixed with color shots of unexpected beauty found in dark places. It was my first real showing, funded by Dante but earned by my own talent. I stood in the corner watching people examine my work, listening to their comments. A year ago, I would have been terrified. Now, with Danny's hand resting on my lower back, I felt only pride. "You're brilliant," he murmured in my ear. "Every piece is incredible. You're biased." "Completely." "But also correct." Uncle Leo approached with a couple who wanted to buy 3 of my larger pieces. As I discussed pricing and delivery, I caught Dante watching me with such love and pride that it took my breath away. The meeting with the Castellanos had gone exactly as planned. When we presented evidence of the journal's existence and made it clear that Sophie Mitchell Romano we'd gotten married quietly 2 months ago was permanently protected, Angelo had agreed to a truce. The ledger stayed hidden and Sophie stayed safe. There had been challenges, of course. Learning to navigate Dante's world, understanding the complexities of his business, accepting that the man I loved was capable of violence when necessary. But there had also been joy waking up beside him every morning, building a life together, creating something beautiful out of tragedy. I'd even tracked down more information about my mother through Father Michael and old parish records. She'd been an artist too, a painter. I had her talent, her eye for beauty. It felt like a connection across time and death, ready to go. Dante asked after the last guest had left, more than ready. "My feet are killing me in these heels." He laughed and scooped me up in his arms, carrying me toward the car despite my protests. "Dante, people are watching." "Let them watch. You're my wife. I'll carry you whenever I want." In the car, I curled against his side, exhausted but happy. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for everything. For protecting me, for believing in me, for loving me. Thank you for choosing me," he replied, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "For taking a chance on a dangerous man with a complicated life. Best decision I ever made, and it was. My mother had given me life and tried to protect me from this world. Vincent Romano had honored his promise to her even after death. And Dante had taken that promise and turned it into something beautiful. I'd found my past, discovered painful truths, and built a future I never imagined. The journey from that midnight knock on my door to this moment had been terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. But I wouldn't change a single moment, because it had led me here, to love, to family, to home, to Dante, and that was worth every risk, every danger, every complication. "I love you," I whispered as we pulled through the gates of our home. "I love you too, Sophie. Today and always, always." It was a promise his father had made to my mother and failed to keep. But it was a promise Dante would keep to me. For the rest of our lives,